Well, good evening and welcome to this live stream on the 26th of December 2022, Boxing Day. Special live stream tonight with Edwin. Just before I bring him in, I will just remind you, of course, that we don't provide financial, property or legal advice. This is a general conversation only. The stream is moderated in the chat, but feel free to join in the chat and make whatever comments you want. If you've got a particular question, use @WalkTheWorld to make sure I see it and to get my attention. It goes into my separate queue. And I've also enabled Super Chat, which means if you'd like to get your question up on the queue, you can do that. Or indeed, if you'd like to make a contribution to what we do here, greatly appreciated. Without further ado, I'm going to press this button. And Edwin, hello.
Hello, Martin. How you going?
Yeah, pretty good. Happy Christmas. Happy Boxing Day. How are your things?
Yeah, look, I got boxed around, but shit happens. It's all good, all good. Santa, didn't make it to my part of the studio, but Dusty and Evan had a treat, had a ball. They got all sorts of gifts for Christmas, Martin. What about yourself? What did you get for Christmas other than your doggy cam?
Well, the doggy cam was the main thing I got, actually. A couple of other small things too, but it was a nice day yesterday. I went out with friends for Christmas lunch, which was pretty pleasant, and the weather's been quite good too. Although it's pretty sticky and humid here. I went out earlier on with the dogs, and they came back very slowly up the hill. humid. It was very steamy this morning, first thing. So.
This is definitely not a time to be late in your skippings with all those books. But you know what? 2022, we said heads down, tails up, because it was going to be a shit show, and no doubt it has been. And I think 2023 is going to be things are going to break before they can get better. And there's a lot of things that aren't breaking as yet, but unfortunately. I'm saying that 2023 people are going to need to get into a side hustle, get down and dirty if it means to they have to get down and dirty, because I don't know about you, Martin, but I have this eerie feeling that 2023 we're going to see a lot of industries shrinking back, and some even shutting down. There's a few things that we're going to bring up about with regards to the real estate industry and what I'm hearing in the on the grapevine and what's happening. Some of the things that I've been talking about for almost 6-7 years now looks like they may be coming to fruition as well.
Absolutely. There's an interesting comment here from whoops, let's go there. There we go. Let's get that one. Oops, just a second. I got the wrong comment up. That's what I wanted to say. Like your black swan, Edwin. You've got some very symbolic stuff behind you, I see.
Well, that's right. It's the cactus is because 2023 is going to become very prickly. There's going to be a lot of black swan events as well. And the other one, the money tree to my left, to the viewer's right, is that just hopefully things will get better for us and for our audience as well.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. Like your black swan. There you go. Got it right this time. And of course, money does grow on trees, doesn't it? Clearly.
Well, yeah. Look, comes down and grows on trees and comes down in helicopters and these funny boxes that governments seem to have in the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet or something like that. That's what they tell me. Look, it's going to be interesting, Mark. It's going to be very, very, very interesting. Before the rant, you and I were talking about the costs, how they're just going, getting exponentially. They're just getting higher and higher. The cost of living and cost of materials, which is something that we're going to be discussing tonight, no doubt. And some of our viewers and followers are going to be wanting to know what's happening with China. It's only now that the mainstream media are catching up to what's what the precursor was of the sudden shutdowns again. That the G and the local authorities put in place there in China, and then with that. The next kerfuffle was all of a sudden everything was okay now, and then the opening up and what that caused, and that caused panic. Shopping centres were totally wiped out, and you can't even find a Panadol, let alone even traditional medicine. All the shelves have been wiped out, and they've also got a dreadful winter that they're going through. So I mean, look, if the crong doesn't kill them, it's going to be the flu and the cold, and the simple fact that people are going without, and they're going without food, and their immune system and everything else is just absolutely shot. So they're going through a lot there, and so with that comes what you and I have been talking about for a while now, was in getting our audience prepared for the future supply chain issues, and it's only now that the mainstream media are catching up to that and are starting to report on it.
Well, it's interesting because they reported in China today two statistics, right? That the official statistics was 4,000 new COVID cases across China in the last 24 hours. And then from a regional area, they reported 1 million cases. So somewhere between 4,000 and 1 million is the true number, but I have no idea which is right.
Yeah, look, and the other thing is that it hasn't hit the mainstream media here as well. I mean, we get the information firsthand from Dusty and the friends over the WeChat chatterers are in China, and we're really heading back to the beginnings of 2020 with some of the reporting that's happening there at the moment. Look, call it a conspiracy, call it whatever you want to call it. But what we're seeing is there the articles or the news or the feeds that are going through the social media platforms over there is such that it's doom and gloom, and you're getting a lot of deaths, which is almost similar to what was happening, if you recall those videos that we saw on early 2020, where people were just dropping dead all over the place. But I think most of the people that may have been a show, that may have been a precursor to the control of the population and the lockdowns that we went into back then in 2020, and it was sort of to scare the population. But I think, look, people I believe, and from the information that we've got, I believe that people are genuinely dying, but it's not necessarily dying from the crong as such as it is from, as I said, being malnutrition, being locked up for so long. The immune system's absolutely shot, and there are other things that you die from. And people forget that you can die from the flu. And there's all sorts of sicknesses and illnesses, and if you've got this these rapid antigen tests that they do, these rapid tests, you basically, if you've got other illnesses, and you allegedly have the crong, well, you can't go into a medical facility for any attention. So there's people that are genuinely dying, but for other reasons other than the crong. But look, is it fear mongering? Is it preparing the rest of the world for further shutdowns? Are the economies in the rest of the world back where they were when in the property markets about to take a major nosedive, that they need to lock us back down and bring all the listing numbers back to where we were in 2021 in order to control the falls? I mean, who's they? We're just conspiratorians, Martin.
Well, yeah, some would say that. The property market, of course, very different from a year ago. We had last year property prices up in Sydney 30%. Now falling. We have got listings all over the place. We've got some prices still actually exceeding expectations, other prices considerably below expectations, and quite a lot of confusion. And you actually had this example of the last auction of the year, right?
That's right. Well, there was, but we warned our audience. We warned our audience, and we said there's going to be a lot of out-of-line sales. There's going to be a lot of sales that the mainstream media are going to be beating their chest. And they're going to be saying, look, what a wonderful thing it is. The property market's still hot, and we've hit the bottom, so come in, jump in and buy. And we're also going to get a lot of other out-of-line sales where properties are going to be let go. But the interesting thing that we saw in 2022 is the mortgagee in possessions that we were reporting on and we were following, and Power was also chasing. And also Cookie Boy was chasing it, and the banks didn't let them go for what we would say they didn't let them go for peanuts. They were holding up for top dollar, and there's still one or two properties that still with the agencies, because the banks won't let them go, still won't let them go for what the market wants to pay. Yeah, but so that was the anomalies that we saw in 2022, and I think we're going to see a bit more of that in 2023, particularly in the first and second quarter, until listings on market start really to start growing or start getting back to normal, if they go back to normal. But with regards to the last two auctions of 2022, they were absolute fizzes in Sydney. it was uncanny. I was going to attend both of them, but one was cancelled early in the morning before the auction. But the second one, I was there at Bass Hill, and again what we saw, it was just a reflection of again what we saw in 2022 and throughout. And this is where the authorities need to step in and take control of the market in 2023, because this is all the bullshit and all the baloney that gets bantered around by the selling agents, which is in reference to misleading, deceptive conduct around marketing campaigns and what we would call underquoting. But I've got to be careful, because I've already been told to be careful when I start putting out my posts about underquoting, because someone's going to take me to task. Come as you will. So we saw a lot of that, and I said to our client, look, it's not going to go, because the agent's talking high nines, but we know that the vendor wants 1.2, and it was a fizzy got passed in at $1,070,000. So there you have it. The interesting thing, Martin, is that Victoria had one auction as well last week. One auction that got passed in from the records that I see online. I could be wrong, but it seems to be still for sale. But for this time around, for the 31st, we got Victoria leading the charge with two auctions on market, and both by the same agent, and they call themselves area specialists. Let's wait and see if they are area specialists, or they've just taken the vendors' marketing money and pissed it up against the wall, because it's going to be interesting to see the outcome. You've got two new properties in suburbs by the same agent, obviously different times, but they're new properties. And from what you and I have been reporting towards the last quarter, particularly in the last quarter of 2022, we were seeing and witnessing the listings on market in Victoria just go skyrocket, and almost double the numbers that we've got for sale in Sydney, and that just kept on growing. I'm more confident in the market, in the listings on market in Melbourne, to hit the 30,000, possibly by the end of the first quarter, than what I am of us getting back to 10,000 homes on market in Sydney.
Yeah, well, it's certainly interesting times with all those numbers. Here's the New South Wales number. This is for the 26th of December, 14,458 in the Sydney region, which is down, isn't it, from where we were previously, as we sort of expected.
Yeah, that's correct. And the interesting thing there is that houses on market and apartments on market are almost identical. So we've seen a significant drop in apartment sales. The numbers of apartments for sale, and I think it's what I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that this may be one of the main reasons, and that is that people aren't meeting the expectations to basically the apartments are so much underwater that they can't afford to let them go, because they obviously, if they sell them, they're underwater. They're still in a hock with the banks. But I know that to be the case in Melbourne, but Sydney, that would be one of the main reasons. And the other main reason is that apartment holders, investors that are holding apartments, particularly in the Chinese community, in the WeChat community, they are holding because on a hope and a prayer that these migrants that are coming in are gonna once again be able to lease them out, and we're going to get a lot more students. I don't know whether that may be the case, because obviously to come to Australia, to go anywhere in the world, flights are very, very expensive. Let alone to come to Australia from India, from South America, in any other country by China, because China, obviously, the borders are closed. But you've got other Asian areas that want to come to Australia to study. But obviously, they're going to be the very high net worth individuals, because things aren't. The cost of living has increased. So it's not just a matter of paying your tuition, but it's also surviving and being able to fend for yourself in order to stay alive whilst you're getting your BS degree that you've come over for.
Well, migration, of course, is definitely rising. There's a lot of student visas in the works, and of course, the government's been rushing those through to try and bring people in for the start of the new academic year. A lot of those people will go to the major urban centres, and certainly I've spoken to a few people with investment properties in the centres of Sydney and Melbourne who are now convinced that these students will save them. So let's see.
Yeah, well, exactly. Let's see. Let's see, because as we spoke about 4 or 5 months ago, possibly even a little bit longer, Martin, is the next lot of students that are being persuaded to come into Australia to study. They're of a different ethnicity or different ethnic group. They're not the Chinese that would be happy to live in a 2-bedroom apartment with 6 other people. These are people that prefer to live in the outskirts, and because they're more conscious of the cost of living and where they live. So I'm look, in some parts maybe, but I don't think all areas are going to be saved. Not like your Parramatta's, and not like your Bankstowns and your in those high-rise developments out in the middle of nowhere, such as Quakers Hill and what is it, Marsden Park and your Schofields, all these, and even Blacktown for that matter. It's a different group of people that are coming over, and I think they would prefer to live in a house, even if there were a lot more in the house. It's just a different mindset. That's just my general overview.
And those suburbs that you mentioned, Marsden Park, those areas, high levels of mortgage stress still there, of course. So they may not actually have a get out of jail card in those high stressed areas. Let's just look at Melbourne. So this is the Melbourne numbers. So as you said, still pretty strong. This is on the 26th, so again today, 23,154. So that's a big number.
Yeah, it is. It's come down, but not a lot, not as much as the Sydney numbers. So it's relatively high. And there's a lot of confidence there for vendors to sell. Hence the reason why they're going out with a bang. They've got 2 auctions.
and somebody said 2 a.m. I don't think it was 2 a.m. I think that might be the not quite the right time of day for the auction. Maybe that'd be something they should try. Auction in the middle of the night and see whether they can get a few extra bidders in. Who knows?
Look, you could try anything. No, I'm still trying to get a hold of that. I'm still trying to get a hold of that auctioneer, that lady auctioneer that came out in lingerie, and I'm sure it was down in Melbourne. And this is years ago. They came in at Current Affairs or one of those. It was years and years ago. I've looked and searched for it. I mean, you got to try. You got to try it. But as I put it out on Twitter, Martin, it's either going to be, a bloodbath comes to mind. But if they do get away with it, there are 2 new homes in the 2 suburbs by the same real estate agent, and I guess this is where the alarm bells were ringing when I was looking at the listings for those 2 properties, that they were brand new homes. And as a quick general overview and search online for different sales in those areas, they seem to be asking 5-10% above what everything else was what has been selling there. So who knows? Is it a trick? I mean, we saw the $1 reserve auctions over at Tarramurra, where the agents absolutely hoodwinked the Seventh-day Adventist Church, into letting go properties for what I believe the overall was probably a 27% drop in value from what they could have got. But then again, each to their own, and these are the selling gurus that people are putting the life savings, the biggest asset on the line for, and who's to say what they got told and what fairy tales they're believing.
Fairy tales, goodness me, what a thought. Talking about fairy tales, let's just look at Brisbane. 404,774. So again, down a bit, but not dramatically down. And I was talking to somebody up in Brisbane the other day who's saying prices are definitely on the slide there now.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing in, well, obviously what these screenshots don't show is the quick turnover. There's a quick turnover there in Brisbane from your stats, your conversations with people, my conversations with agents up there and colleagues up there as well. So there's a huge turnover. So the amount of, like, with the same amount of properties that get sold, there's a lot more replacing them, but obviously keeping those numbers consistent and regular. The interesting thing, as you say, is that agents are also finding is that vendors are quick to take on first offers. But then again, they all, as they say much, in a downward trend, first offers are generally the best offers anyway.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very, very good point. Now, I think we should move on and talk specifically about the China situation, because there's some news that hasn't really made it to the mainstream yet, which I think is quite significant.
Yeah, look, it is. It's and this is obviously, you and I have been talking about the issue around the lockdowns, and we were that the WeChat chatterers were reporting, and how that was going to affect the construction building industry here in Australia. Then we moved from that phase for zero tolerance policy on the cron to then all of a sudden, let's just open up, and then the CCP stepped back, the central government stepped back and gave the authority to the local governments to either stay in lockdown or open up, and obviously because the local governments weren't getting any income and weren't surviving, they were pretty much broke, and a lot of these local governments are dependent on developers and in the construction industry as well, because they're the ones that feed those taxes, very, very similar to our stamp duty scenarios and council contribution scenarios that we have here. Without it, obviously, and without that activity, their local governments were absolutely in the dumpster and broke. So then they opened up, and we got major issues, but both with the shutdowns and the reopening up without proper controls, without proper thought, without due process, and with everything. Look, people just panic, and they're in voluntary lockdowns themselves, and they're isolated. The ones that were able to get food, they just basically nutted down. So the economy is in a world of shit there in China, to say the least, and obviously that is all going to be impacting and affecting our markets here, as you and I have been pointing out to our followers for months. We over the last few months with these changes. So now what we have, Mark, is we've got some novel ways of re-stimulating the property market in the predominantly in the second tier cities that they've come up with. So although the slides are in Chinese, we try to use a Google Translate to do screenshots with Google Translate, but it wasn't coming out the best. So we're just going to take out some of the points that are of interest, because this, I believe, Martin, this is coming to Australia very, very soon. So I'm just going to read out some of the points, and for our viewers and people that have tuned in. These are banking documents that are being broadcasted to the Chinese community. So this isn't just stuff that somebody's made up or put up. These are official banking documents, and so we've got we got it first here on DFA, and we're reporting this on DFA. So if you look at the first slide, Martin, you've got the numbers there on your left, so at the bottom from 1 to 6, right? So this is the translation to what those points are. So with regards to that first slide, so number one says if you're over 18, you can apply for a loan of maximum 30 years. Loans are available up to the age of 75, right? So if you're over 18, so That's the criteria. So the bars really come down. So it's not if you're over 18 and you've got a job and you can show, that you're making 100K a year or you earn a year or whatever it is that you just need to, that is the threshold. That is the bar. You just have to be over 18. Point number 2, the loan can be extended to the age of 85. So if you've got a current loan, you can refinance now from the loans were up to 60 or 60. You can extend it for another 25 years. So you can actually carry the loan to the age of 85, and your children can continue to pay on your behalf. This is what you and I have been talking about. That could be coming, it's probably around the corner coming to Australia, mate. So, do you want me to keep on going, or you want to just stop on that one?
The intergenerational mortgage is here. Yeah, well, I've already said the 40-year mortgages are being discussed here in Australia. So, and there were 50-year mortgages in Japan, of course. And so the idea of the intergenerational mortgage, so let the next generation pay it off, it's obvious, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is the thing, right? So the life expectancy is actually, Dusty tells me the life expectancy is actually dropped in China, and it's dropping dramatically, right? So to extend the loan another 25 years after you're 60, so realistically, your kids are they're footing the bill. That's it. No questions asked. So number 3, students, right? So even if you're a student, you can apply for a loan. So a student
with no income.
Exactly. In this context, means a student with no income, right? In this context, so just to be clear, a student with no income can apply for a loan, and parents can support them to pay. Effectively, it's your mum and dad buying you the property, but the loan's in your name. You just get that longevity of time to pay it off, right?
Thanks to mum and dad all over again.
So so when mum and dad can't get used to it, you've got it anyway. Now, this is one of the better ones, though. This is one of the better criteria. Number 4, boyfriends and girlfriends can jointly apply for a loan to purchase a property, right? So one could say, well, you got de facto relationships. Well, what's that? But this is interesting, the way that they worded it and the way they put it there, because obviously de facto relationships aren't the norm in China. This isn't something that's we're not talking Australia, we're not talking US, we're not talking Canada, we're talking China here. So it's rather interesting. So if your boyfriend, although you're not living together, you're not cohabitating, but you can get your girlfriend or you can get your boyfriend to jointly apply for a loan, and one of you live in the property. I guess with the hope that you're going to get married later on as well. So you can, so it's all prickly there, right? This is, for me, this is what the banks here in Australia should bring in, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are thinking what I've been thinking since I got this document. Right. Number 5, ex-wives and ex-husbands can guarantee the new loan, and pay together. So, I mean, the mind boggles, Martin. I don't know what comes to you. Thoughts come across your mind when I was saying, they've got to bring it in, because I know I'm going to be knocking on somebody's door to buy another property and get it to sign, and then and then just walk away. Revenge.
It really is amazing, but it shows you the wriggle room, right? So how can we try and keep the and of course in China, it's just worth reflecting. Property prices have dropped dramatically in China in the last year or so. The amount of funding to the property developers and in fact loans has dropped through the floor. And people, of course, have been striking because they start paying the mortgage not when the building is complete, but when they actually sign to have a property built for them. So, and then the builder doesn't complete it, so they've been paying these mortgages ahead of time. So this is all an attempt to try and actually keep the ball in the air. Now, isn't that a bit like Australia? So wouldn't you expect to see somewhat similar things here? What do you think, Edwin?
Yeah, look, I think we need to bring in number 6. Pets can sign for a loan. Yeah, especially if they've got a social media presence, those little bastards are making a lot of money. There were some pets on Instagram. There are some pets on Instagram that are making a mozza.
Yeah.
So why not? That put hey, Dusty, come over here. Yeah, put your paw on, press hard. There's 3 copies.
Exactly right. Well, maybe Luda and Misha need a channel. Now, there's also more, right? So there's a second slide too, which we might get to, which essentially has even more interesting ideas.
Yeah, look, this is from another bank. The first one was from the first bank. Sorry, the first one's from the Bank of Nanjing. The second one's from the Bank of Hangzhou. So we've got the second one. The main points there that I wanted to bring out got translated. It was number one, if your income is not enough and you need a guarantor, any family or friend within the age of 65 can guarantee the loan. So just go out in the street, befriend somebody that you think's got a bit of a quid and convince them to come and guarantee the loan, and we'll give you the loan and we'll give you the mortgage and we'll give you the property, right? So, I mean, you got to be stupid on the other side of that coin, right? You got to be absolutely bonkers to take it on, to be the guarantor. Number two, again, boyfriend and girlfriend can guarantee the loans. Now, this is different to the first bank where it said that the boyfriend and girlfriend could jointly apply, right? So this bank goes even a bit further and says, so you can be a sole purchaser, but you can get your girlfriend to just guarantee the loan. So you're not both jointly on title, right? All sorts of shit go through my mind, right? I'm sure our viewers are, the mind's boggling there as well. Or vice versa, you can get your boyfriend to guarantee that. And look, so providing you're over 18, I mean, there's other, I mean, it's basically they just want people that they just want to tap into people that don't have loans, don't have mortgages, tap into their funds, their savings, because they've got to keep this Ponzi going. They've got to keep this, they're juggling these balls. And number 6 for the second bank was the elderly within the age of 65 can have the loans extended to 85, which is similar to what bank number 1 had in point number 2. So there you go, Martin. There you have it, coming to Australia soon.
Yeah. Well, there's a recipe there, dear Mr. Albanese. Right. Of course, in Australia, we've already got shared equity lending. Everyone's banging up and down about that. We've had changes to the stamp duty regime in New South Wales to allow first-time buyers in particular, and other people too, perhaps, to not have to pay a lump sum stamp duty, but effectively to spread it over the life of the property, etc. There's even some of the building and construction sector lobbying the government very hard for more home builder type programs to stimulate interest in property in Australia. And of course, you've also got the banking lobby who are lobbying very hard now to reduce the 3% buffer that APRA has imposed on lending standards in Australia. The argument is, well, interest rates probably won't go much higher than where they are today, so you don't need a 3% buffer. You can take it back down again. And sidebar, we also know that in Australia, a number of the lenders have actually reduced their lending underwriting standards, not increased them, reduced them to offset the reduction in borrowing power. So on average, if you compare today with 6 to 9 months ago, 25 to 30% less borrowing power typically for a given level of income and expenditure. But banks are now finding ways around that to try and actually extend back up the amount you can borrow again. So, they're trying all ways. So here's another set to just impose over the top.
Yeah, well, Dusty tells me that they're going to implement that in Victoria. So I don't know why the Victorians are leaving. It's an extended state of China. So that's what Dusty tells me. So don't get angry with me, people on the chat. Dusty tells me these things. I think it's just a conspiracy, personally, but
yeah. But the point is, of course, after mining, which is a big thing, property and finance is huge. It's a very significant proportion. And of course, the third leg of the stool is education and students, which they're sort of pulling those in too. So they are trying to pull all the levers to try and actually stop the whole market sort of falling over. And so we're going to see a very interesting sort of tussle, I think, in the next few months, right? So on one hand, there's probably going to be a little bit more upside of interest rates from the RBA, not a lot. The markets are still saying 4% towards the end of next year and beyond. Some of the commentators are still saying maybe one. I was listening to the guy from AMP today saying, well, there'll be probably one more in February, but probably nothing after that. Westpac's talking about 3.85% cash rate. So we're looking at mortgage rates of sort of 6-ish, 6.5%. We've got the mortgage cliff through the middle of next year from the fixed rates that are being reset. We know those are happening. We've got the slowdown in the market, the reduction in borrowing power. And then on the other side, you've got all of this morass of different things that people are trying to throw in to try and prop the market up and stop the decline. And quite a few people are suggesting that in the RBA review that's currently in train at the moment, that they'll actually come out and say that the Reserve Bank should not have used the interest rate lever so brutally because of the fact that households are so highly leveraged and we're damaging the property market so considerably, which is hugely reductive in terms of the wealth factor in Australia, and the wealth factor is critical for the GDP growth, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, we're you can see these two forces pulling in completely opposite directions, right? I don't know where it's going to end, but you can see all the vested interests pushing in one direction, and you can see the RBA weakly trying to sort of push in the other direction, although not maybe fully heartedly, unlike the Federal Reserve. And I'm fascinated because in the last month, of course, the Fed has actually come out in the US and said, no, we are really serious about tackling inflation. Rates will go higher. We're okay if we crash the property market. We're okay if the stock markets drop because we have to tackle inflation. And we've got sort of a weak echo from the RBA here, but we've still got so many vested interests trying to talk the market up. So I don't know how it's going to play out, really. Hello, can you still hear me, Edwin?
Yeah, I'm not going to hear you. I don't know what. Can you hear me?
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what Dusty did.
Okay.
She's playing out the chords at the back there.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, but my point is, it's very complicated, right? So there's a bunch of different things going on, and I'm not quite sure which force is going to play out. But I have this nasty feeling the debt bomb is the thing that's going to go kaboom in the next 12 months.
Look, I agree with you on all that. The other things that we just got to keep conscious of is, like what you and I have been discussing before as well, is that Australia is not a really big market in comparison to a lot of other countries. So I guess and I'm looking just at what happened in 2021 and 2020, 2021, and one of the biggest drivers in my view, which I talk and rant a lot about, is the listings on market, which for me are very, very, very critical. And given the fact that there are a lot of people still on the sidelines with a lot of money waiting to jump in, once they believe that the bottom the markets hit the bottom, they believe they jump in. The WeChat chatters themselves, they're talking about jumping in, obviously, towards the end of the first quarter, in greater force towards the end of the first quarter. But again, these are, Martin, these are in specific areas, as you and I talk about, specific areas for specific properties, specific houses, because they want to break the rental ceiling. So, and the reason why they want to break the rental ceiling is because obviously there's not a lot of rental property available. Hence the reason why we've got the other issue on the other hand that the politicians are facing, and that is the rental crisis that we're going through right across Australia. And obviously migration and this push for greater greater numbers in specific areas of migrants to come in. Obviously, that's going to put greater stress and greater strain on the property market. On the property market as well, on the rental, from the rental side of things. So you've got a bit of a conundrum where you've got people that are living in certain parts of Sydney, not all, but certain parts of Sydney, where you could say that the rentals are getting to the point where they are just as much as though you would have put let's say you had a 20% deposit on a property, or you only had an 80% LVR on a property, and that's what you were paying. So where do they go, Mark? This is the thing. Where do they go? So this is why we keep looking at for our different clients. We look specifically in the areas that they're looking at, that they want to live in or invest in, and we look at what's happening within those markets there and those specific suburbs, and what's the demographics? How's it shifting? From the rental side of things to the families wanting to live there, to your other services, you've got your schools, tertiary education, and all this. This is all playing obviously a bigger part. So going back to the points that you were raising is, you've got the Fed, obviously, you've got the RBA doing their thing and trying to do this and trying to do that. But I'm very conspiratorial on the fact that the politicians, independently and collectively, are doing their shit as well to try and stop this market from collapsing, and hence the reason why you don't have a real big push from a state level down into a local LGA level, because if you had a greater push and you shook a few LGAs about, we would be able to get more homes on market in certain areas, like I've been saying, small to medium density. I'm not talking about high-rise development, the bullshit that we can't build. I'm talking about small to medium density, which we're good at, building villas and townhouses, and in the good old 3-story walk-ups, where we would put properties on the market. But then you've got these these political parties, whether they're greens, whether they're yellows, whether they're blues, whether they're oranges, whatever, not in my backyard, we've got to save the frog, we've got to save the environment, we've got to save the tree, you've got to bring in more EVs and all this, but yet we're chopping down trees in Victoria to allow the EV delivery, postal delivery bank. All these things. It's just a distraction to basically maintain or lessen the pool of properties available for sale right now. Beforehand, about 3-4 months ago, one of the things that we brought up in our rants, Martin, was potential for a second, potentially another tranche of lockdowns. And what has been the speak of the mainstream? I'm not saying it's going to happen anytime soon. I don't really know. We've just got to keep an eye on it. But what's the mainstream? The narrative around the mainstream now? Look at what's happening in China. Look, people are falling over dead. All these things. So the question is, are we going to be locked up again? What are they trying to do in different areas from across the board, from health to construction, to lessen the numbers of properties on the market? Because obviously that sets a panic, and the people that are sitting on the sideline with a fair bit of money, they're saying, right, that's it, it's the bottom of the market, we're going to jump in, and obviously that's going to re-inflate the market. I'm a believer that the first-home buyers are absolutely cactus. The governments just did nothing to help them out at all, did nothing to help them out over the last 2 years, and has been a worst case again by introducing this, especially my mate Don Perrottet, introducing this choice of stamp duty and or land tax scenario. All that's done is inflated that bandwidth, that price bandwidth, is raised the bar, and it's harder for the genuine first-time buyers to come in. It's just made it easier for investors to come in and take advantage of, like the WeChat charters that I refer to, and other groups of people, and take advantage of the rental conundrum and the rental mess that we're in as well. So all these things are just playing out. So there's a lot of noise out there, and you got to sift right through it. But I just think that can I use the term controlled chaos, because that's what it seems to me, controlled chaos by the bloody governments that are in charge.
Yeah, well, I think you'd have to say that there's an agenda that she's not necessarily the one that people have totally familiar with. But just 2 points. Firstly, of course, many politicians have significant property holdings. So there's going to be a vested interest in trying to keep property prices up. The second is, and this is the biggie, if you think of how much of our lending for Australia is actually into property, it's higher than almost any other country. So our banks are highly leveraged into property. They are big building societies effectively. And so there is actually a genuine concern about financial stability if property prices fall too hard, because it's going to have a significant impact on the banks. Now, of course, everybody says, well, the banks are well capitalised, blah, 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 nothing like 2008, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact of the matter is that we didn't really have a significant property price fall in 2008, and the banks got into significant difficulty and actually got bailed out by using money from overseas, et cetera, and we also had the government-backed guarantee of deposits. So we can't necessarily draw an analogy from 2008. So bearing in mind what proportion of bank lending is actually tied to property, and then the question is, well, what proportion of that lending gets into difficulty if prices do slide as much as we think it probably could? And then there's the question, and what can be done about it? Now, obviously, banks are being very generous at the moment in their supporting of people in difficulty. They're giving people plenty of wriggle room to try and sell and get out. They're also restructuring their mortgages over a long period of time. And I've mentioned on previous posts, they're doing things like saying, go interest only for a few years and then sort it out later, or go interest only and pay it off out of superannuation when you get to 65 or 70 or something. So the banks are finding all sorts of levers to try and actually protect the system, and I think that's with some support from the regulators. So, the stakes are pretty high here, right? Because on one hand, interest rates could actually put pressure on households and they're getting in difficulty. On the other hand, if there are too many people getting in difficulty, it's not just a problem for those individual households, it's a structural problem for the banking system and therefore society generally. And that's the sort of the dilemma that I see at the moment. So I think over the next few months, some of this is going to play out. Now, whether in fact we do start to see those pressures building to the point where the regulators have to step in, I don't know. But to my mind, the stakes are pretty high.
They are. It's the reason why they've really got to protect. They've got to try everything there is. But let's look at the logical, logically or the facts. You and I know that there's going to be a lot of carnage. There's going to be a lot of pain, but unfortunately, the pain is not necessarily going to not in my opinion, not necessarily going to translate as quickly as people would like to think it's going to translate into mortgagee possessions, because there's longevity, particularly now with the backlog in the courts with regards to with any matter. So there's a huge backlog. So you've got this time. And over that course of time, this is what you've been saying, Martin, is that the banks and the financial institutions have got to try, are going to be doing all sorts of, giving people all sorts of wriggle room in order to maintain that principal place of residence. The other thing is no bank wants to be the first bastard out there to be on the mainstream media news, Channel 9, Channel 7, Channel whatever, saying, the CBA, closed me down and I have to sell, blah, 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 because of this, because of that. And look at me, I've got 3 kids and a cat and 2 dogs and a lorikeet, whatever. And I'm out now on the streets and I have to find a accommodation. No bank wants to be in that position, not from as you said, from what happened in 2008. No bank wants to be the first cab off the rank to be plastered all over the news as being the baddie. So I think that there's going to be a hell of a lot of lifelines. It's going to be interesting to see what lifelines are going to be thrown out at the moment or over the course of the next 3 to 6 months. But if you look at the numbers, Martin, the listings are the listings on market from 2012, 2010 to 2010 to 2015. That was the most amount of numbers of listings on market that we've ever seen, particularly around 2015, 2016. So in terms of properties for sale, there was a lot of properties. There weren't a lot of transactions. There were a lot of agents and agencies that closed down between 2010 and 2012 because there were a lot of properties for sale, but there weren't a lot of transactions. And I think what we've got now is we're going to potentially end up with 2021 figures for a bit to people decide what they're going to be doing. But nevertheless, over the last year or two, the transactions haven't been there. So you've got an industry that's operating within the property sector that's also at breaking point as well. My prediction for 2023 is that we will see those 20 to 30% offices shut down, and 20 to 30% of selling agents, real estate agents in New South Wales will exit the industry because they can't afford to keep them. I know now of agencies now that the agents have got second jobs. They're moonlighting as Uber drivers. They're working. Some are working for other for maintenance companies. Within the strata schemes, you've got the Uber drivers, and you've got people that have got a side hustle on what's those platforms on selling stuff online. So you've got, and these are real estate agents that 3 years ago, were very, very successful. They were banking anywhere between $150,000 to $250,000 a year in the wage plus commissions. So these are the people that have now got these side hustles that I'm talking about. So you've got a lot of stress in a lot of industries. So the other interesting factor there that Martin is going to be, as we mentioned earlier on in the show, was what industries are going to shrink and what industries are going to be impacted by moving forward, and where are the people that work in those industries, where do they live? Because obviously they're the ones that are going to be wanting to quickly downsize in order to be able to afford to be in a principal place of residence. So they sell the $2 million home to go further afield and buy a $1.2 million home. This is a fact. I'm telling you now, factually from a conversation I had with a real estate agent a week ago. So he's got a $2 million home. He's going to sell to because he's got $700 mortgage on that, a mortgage of $700 on that. He wants to buy, basically wants to pay it out by 1.1 to 1.2 million. Anywhere from an hour to 2 hours away from Sydney, to then work as a real estate agent wherever he ends up, and also he's got his side hustle on Gumtree and all those other platforms selling antique wares. So this is what's happening there, and this is where a lot of people are facing. So it's going to be a matter of how quickly these properties come on market. That we'll see how quickly things are going to unravel for 2023. But I've got this strange feeling, Martin, that in a lot of areas, again, I won't mention every suburb, but in a lot of areas, I would say 20 to 30, maybe even 35% of suburbs in Sydney, we're not going to see a lot of listings come back on market, particularly more your affluent areas, because to lose $1 million, to lose $2 million of property is a hell of a big expense. We'll see the Blacktown LGAs creep up, and we'll see your Liverpool regions creep up with numbers, because as you'll point out in your surveys, that's where you've got all your mortgage stresses. Those areas are going to be, you'll be mad to try and keep a mortgage, particularly if you're slipping underwater and you've got no job.
Well, I think you're highlighting the critical thing, which I've been saying for some time. We've still got this K effect, right? So you've still got some areas that are relatively affluent and doing relatively well, and they've got relatively good savings, plenty of buffers. And as you say, that they've got the luxury of not having to sell, so therefore they'll just sit on the sidelines. And in those areas, I expect listings to be low, and most of the properties that will be coming on will be, the B's and the C type quality property, not the A class properties. Then you've got other suburbs where you've got the pressure building on households with significant pressures because of higher interest rates. Many of the people in those areas are stressed on my surveys, one of the factors is they're now working additional jobs, side hustles and all sorts of things to try and bring more income in, but rates are still rising. So there we're going to start to see more bank pressure coming in, and therefore quite likely we're going to see more listings there. And some of those properties will be potentially discounted quite considerably from where the market was quite recently, not least because quite a few people bought right at the peak over the last couple of years before prices came back. So we're going to see, I think, a real interesting pivot in terms of different geographic areas. And, I keep saying, and I think you agree with me, Edwin, you have to go granular. You can't just talk about averages across Australia or averages across Sydney or other places. You have to go granular. You have to understand this micro dynamic that's going on at the moment, because I think it's really going to come out in the next few months just how different these markets are.
Definitely. But overall, one of the consistencies and the common thread in a lot of these markets, although you go granular, is the properties within these markets that are in the bandwidth of your 800 to 1.1 that are going to be sitting pretty, because they're the ones that your first home buyers would typically jump into. They just got stabbed in the back. The first home buyers got stabbed in the back, and they're the ones that will pick up will perhaps sustain their value.
Yep.
And to an extent, I would say there'll be some areas we're going to see those values even go up. From what they were dropping. Some areas that are that I'm active, particularly looking for clients at the moment. We saw them dropping, and towards the end of the year, that went back up 5-7%. Because of that panic and because of the special the Don Pere effect that I keep on talking about. It's an interesting market. But let's get into some interesting topics, and maybe even get some questions from the viewers and see what they want to talk about, and some of the predictions, audacious predictions that we're going to be talking about moving forward. One of my favourite, Martin, is mark the calendar. End of 2023. Twitter goes public again.
Right.
That's just
very, very good. Well, you put up a few earlier on, actually. The Year Domain and REA Etal Lunch, which I think is quite. I mean, they are becoming more and more dominant, aren't they, in terms of the way that the whole industry.
This is exactly, and this is going to be key. I've been talking about this for 6-7 years.
Yep.
And now more than ever, because if you look at one of Tarat's tweets pointed out last week that Domain lost a lot of territory with the shares. They lost a lot, and they were questioning things what would happen. Now I've been saying that Domain and REA are going to become real estate offices. Per se, that would work on a fee for service for 6-7 years. And back then I was saying it would happen within 5 years, but then again the pandemic changed everything. But now more than ever, the conversation in the industry with industry specialists that I talk to, these are people that not only in the real estate industry that are talking about this high ranking. People in the real estate industry, but also in other industries, Martin, that these platforms are going to rely on in order to make it happen. They're already having conversations with them, and I think that 2023 towards the middle end of 2023, the industry is going to be getting a major shockwave, where potentially we could see Purple Bricks 2.0. Materialise, and real estate selling agents will be used as a fee-for-service agents in order to participate. Because let's not forget that collectively between REA and Domain and their annual income that agents pay them for marketing on those two platforms is anywhere between $2.1 to $2.4 billion, right? Annualized. The commission income for the industry across Australia, including Tasmania, they did bring a little bit of money, including Tasmania, is $15 billion on average, Martin. So they're basically saying, hold on a minute, we people that want to sell the properties, they list the properties on market, which is the real estate agents list the properties on our portals, Domain Real Estate. People that want to buy property look at our portals, Domain Real Estate, in order to buy. So why should the real estate agents make the $15 billion when we facilitated them with these massive platforms, and they are big beasts with these massive platforms, to make it easier for them to list, to sell, and to negotiate with people and so forth and get the buyers? Why should we only be getting 2.1 billion and they're getting 50 when theoretically they think that they do all the work? But what these bastards forget about the fact, Martin, is that we built these platforms. If it wasn't but the real estate agent industry, there wouldn't be these platforms. And this is where I also get shitty with the real estate institutes, because we had a great opportunity to when I was very active with the real estate institutes to build a bigger platform than Domain to go, but obviously vested interest and things got hit on the head. But this is why I'm a believer that these people are just going to go and basically eat our lunch. So let's wait and see. But fingers crossed, it's going to happen in 2023.
And you just put up the other Twitter. There was a few ones, most of which you covered off. But the one about Dusty and Edwin becoming pet foster carers, that was a very interesting one, right? And in fact, the ABC today had a show specifically about that, and we'll just show it now on an article. So, Pets in Crisis program help people under threat of violence keep their pets while finding safe homes. So they basically get paid to look after people's animals so that they can actually shift into safer accommodation. So another example of another sort of a side hustle.
No, well, for us, Martin, it's not so much a side hustle for Dusty and Edwin as much as it is to look. There are a lot of little friends out there that are struggling, and there are a lot of families that what this pandemic, what's happened over the last 2 years. One of the things I can share with from my legal eagles conversations with the legal eagles that we have, and particularly in the area of criminal and family matters, is the fact that the criminal matters have risen exponentially to about 180% to where they were in 2019, and things are only going to get worse now with the borders open. We're going to get a lot of the white gold from Colombia and South America coming back into Australia in container loads. Suitcase loads, because the borders are being open, and a lot of these students that come over as mules and take a chance, because it's a way to make money. So we're going to see a lot of criminality, particularly in the eastern suburbs, increase. The pressures of the lifestyles that the economy is putting us into. People are going to be going without, and when people go without, they get desperate, and the criminality increases all around, because people have got to eat and people have got to feed their families, right? So then the other side of that is the displacement of the renters. For one of the main reasons is you've got family breakdowns. And obviously, you got domestic violence issues, and what you find is that the people that get caught up in domestic violence issues that are tenants, they're finding it very, very, very difficult to then look for a property to relet, because typically they're either the party that has custody of the children, or they've got custody of the pets, let's say. So in this case, the RSPCA put out a plea for assistance, in which we've Dusty and myself we're joining, and we've got the room. They're indoor cats and dogs only. At this point in time, they were taking it, and we decided to extend the room that Dusty and Evan have now that the renovations are finished, to accommodate these little friends, because they need care, Martin. Where else do they go? I mean, it's hard for the single parents, these individuals that have been caught up in these domestic violence issues. It's hard for them to find a accommodation, and let alone find something where these bastard of property managers that are becoming so anti, rentals with people that have got pets.
Absolutely. Well, it's a very worthwhile cause, and so congratulations for getting involved in that, Edwin. And it's it's just another sign of the times, isn't it? Certainly, I'm seeing one of the data points in my surveys. If you go back 2 years, a lot of people acquired pets because, of course, they were at home and they had a bit of money from the government. And now, of course, it's all gone a bit wrong because the money's gone the other way. Interest rates are rising, costs of care and food for pets are rising too. And quite often it gets difficult. In fact, more pets are now being handed back to the RSPCA and the other entities in Australia that look after them. So it's tricky, very, very tricky. Well, Edwin, I can say I've got no specific questions from the audience. They've been very heavily engaged in the conversations we've gone through, and I've put a few questions up. There were a couple which I will just briefly touch on, if I can go back and find them. So this was one that Rolf actually asked a little while ago. Can I interview a housing property millionaire with 200 houses working at McDonald's, use the equity in previous houses to lever up and now see how that works in reverse? The short answer is I have had a couple of conversations with people in that situation, not the particular McDonald's one. People don't really want to come on camera and talk about it in detail at the moment, but it is creating a huge issue, not least because, of course, what happens is that people then have to make the decision about how to unwind, because if they've got multiple mortgages all cross-leveraged and interest rates start to go up, it gets unstable very quickly. But if you've got multiple properties, what you can do is to start selling properties. And so what I'm seeing in my surveys and in my conversation with individuals who've actually built some sort of wealth portfolio from property, although highly debt engineered and therefore little real equity, it's all sort of debt laden. But what it basically means is they're highly exposed, but they can sell properties. If they can sell and get out, the question is, can they sell without getting into negative equity? In so doing it, that becomes tricky now. So I think that'll be an interesting one to watch. My belief is that in this next year or so, when we're going to see more people with multiple investment properties having to make hard decisions to sell some of them to be able to sort of survive for the rest of them. So that's, I don't know what you think about that, but that would be my perspective on it.
I think I think the people that are going to be in a world of caca are the ones that are holding on to multiple apartments.
Yep.
Across Australia. I know Tony Lacantros loves the WA and Perth and that, but I think a lot of people that are in the east, investors that are in the east that invested in Perth and those faraway places are also potentially could be in a lot of strife if people here start losing their jobs. Because what you've got a lot of investors from the eastern parts of Australia, the real Australia, that bought in WA, and because they couldn't afford an investment property in the East Coast, they went and bought the Northern Territory, or they went and bought in South Australia, and predominantly they went to WA, and they saw this rise in values, and they're all hunky dory, and they're all happy chubbies. But the problem is, Martin, is that a lot of these people, the majority of these people, and I don't know whether your survey captures it, but a lot of these people, that was the first and only investment, the majority. So, and these are people that couldn't convince the bank to allow them to buy an investment property, albeit even an apartment in the East Coast. So they went further afield and put their money in WA. So because historically that's what happens as well. You see the WA jumps up in leaps and bounds, and then when it comes down, she comes down really, really hard. Because it's all the people from the eastern states, predominantly Sydney and Victoria, that invested heavily in WA, and when they lose the jobs here, that's when the market just absolutely implodes over in these regions. So they're the two people that the two groups that I would say would be in a lot of trouble. They're the ones that are heavily invested in apartments, and obviously in, as I said, in those regions. Now, just to add another sidebar to that, to people that are holding 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 properties in portfolios, they don't necessarily hold them in their own names. You'd find that these individuals that are holding these large portfolios are holding them under trusts, companies that sit on trusts and family trusts, and it's company trust, because that's the only way that they could get what we would term as your no doc loans in order to. And that's how they got around the borrowing regulations in order to show, because most of these loans were on low doc, no doc, the old no doc loans scenarios. In other words, they bought in equity from so-called equity from other properties to ramp up. But it's on the company, and to unravel that, it's going to be very, very, very interesting. But these are the individuals that have the greater chance of really going belly up, as you say, Martin, and these are the properties that potentially come on as your first tranche of mortgagee in possessions, where it's companies, individuals, syndicates, and even institutions that just can't make the repayments.
Absolutely, yeah, and we already saw, of course, some companies falling over post-COVID, but we're seeing now a spate of those that are actually company-structured property investment companies that are actually also wobbling. I agree with you. Another quick question. We're going to close this quite soon, but this was one that was quite interesting. What thoughts on rural properties? So he's looking at Midwest Queensland, 12 acres of land, worried about this land tax similar going forward. I think there's a couple of observations I've got. One is, they are going to mess around with land tax again. It's quite clear into the future. And the other is that obviously rural property values are driven as much as by land values as the properties themselves. So it is determined a little bit by supply and demand of property. But I'd also make the point that we've had considerable disruption in many areas with floods and those sorts of things. So land values are all over the place in different parts of Australia. So it's very hard to make general comments about rural properties. I think you have to go very granular and look at the details. I don't have the details to hand from Midwest Queensland, but I don't know if you've got any thoughts there, Edwin.
Yeah, look, we just helped the client buy 50 acres or 47 acres up at west of Newcastle, and it's pretty much as you say. You really have to go granular. You really have to understand what you're buying, what you're sitting on, and what you have to look very closely at the topography. You have to look very closely at what the government's planning and doing. Future development or mining, what you can do yourself. The reason why you're buying it, that's and the taxable implications of that is obviously comes back to mind. Is it a principal place of residence, or is it an investment? Then obviously there's different taxable implications. But one of the things that, although he's very, we thought he was very astute as an accountant, that we helped him buy this parcel of land, but even he had to get his mind around the different principles of the different borrowing issues in summary blocks that you could come across, because no bank at the moment is throwing a lot of money at primary producers, because effectively that's what you are when you're looking at rural land, particularly acreage. There are certain banks that will only lend you 55 to 60% of what you require. So you more or less got to have a lot of cash on hand, or you've basically got to have all the money on hand in order to do the transaction and be prepared for and make sure that the mortgage, or if you are obtaining a mortgage, make sure that everything's kosher, because the banks will really scrutinise. The other thing that I'll say moving forward is you only have to look at what's happening from a global geopolitical point of view as to decide whether or not that's going to be a good idea anyway. To buy, particularly if you want to be a primary producer, because of all the all these things. If they stop, there's going to be a tax on cows farting. There's going to be a tax on chickens pooping everywhere. There's going to be a tax on the frogs on your land burping. So you got to look at all those things as well. What is the government going to do? So what I have noticed from this 3 months that we've been helping this client look and buy this property market, is what I have gathered, the information that I've gathered is that there's a hell of a lot of people that have been on the land for 2, 3, in some cases 4 generations that have owned those parcels of land that they just went out. There's just too much BS with the governments and with the from the local to state governments that they just find it very difficult to navigate through. So they're just saying, you know what, we're just taking an early retirement. We're going to buy ourselves a little place by the water or by the river and just live the rest of our lives in peace, because there's just too much red tape.
No, that's right. And I think the final observation on the rural property thing is that obviously being able to grow food and stuff has value, and you could argue that if things continue to fall apart, that could be quite valuable too. So there is also a potential future value offsetting some of the other things. Like I say, it's very complicated and very difficult. Well, I think we're pretty much coming to the end of the stream, Edwin. Any last thoughts or suggestions in terms of tips for the day or tips for the year or whatever?
No, look, tips. Just got to be careful. Just be Tyson. Be Tyson when you go to the auctions. What we're seeing is there's going to be a lot more shenanigans being played out by being instigated by the selling agents, particularly around auctions, because they get desperate, and desperate people will do all sorts of desperate things, and they will put their licenses on the line in order to make a commission and to try and get the sale, which is the unfortunate thing. But we're going to see a lot of that, because a lot of real estate agents are going to be desperate because the transactions aren't going to be there. So just keep that in mind. So just duck and weave and do your research. Find out. Ask questions on the day. Are we on the market? Are we not on the market? Why should I continue to be? Have that banter with the auctioneer. And talking about auctioneers, Mark, I put out a challenge to our mate Tom Panos. So winner takes all, and the challenge is threefold. Now his he from his posts that a lot of our followers would have seen on Twitter. He's all about push-ups, and he challenges all the selling agents to do push-ups. So I said, okay, that could be one of the first challenges. We can see who can do the most push-ups. So I'll take him on his favourite gig to do push-ups. Challenge number 2 is to have the debate as to where the property market is going to, where we see the property market in 2023. That could be early in 2023. We could have that debate, and the viewers can vote. Who they choose has put forth the most logical analysis or interpretation or what would you call it? Synopsis of what's to come in 2023. And the third, because we did push-ups, the third is we do 3-minute rounds in the octagon. Because he's into fitness as well. So that's my challenge. I tagged him on it. I put it out there because he put out a tweet a couple of days ago with him at the gym pumping iron and getting all muscular and getting ready to do more push-ups. So I said, and number 4 was who collects the most amount of money for a charity of their of their choosing. And at the end, we work out the dynamics as to how it's going to be has going to be ruled upon and so forth. Who wins, and the winner's charity, winner takes all, and the charity obviously all the money gets, all the proceeds collected and everything there. So what I'm going to ask our followers and our viewers is get on Twitter, look at my Twitter post and retweet it and retag Tom Panasonic, because I know that sooner than later he'll get a call. I'll also text him because I got his personal phone number as well. So I'll also text him and talk to him about the challenge and see if he wants to take it on. But let's encourage him to take it on, if nothing else, but to have fun throughout 2023, raise some money for worthwhile charities of which my charity of choice is obviously going to be the one that you're running, Martin.
Well, and thanks for that, and I shall follow that Twitter storm with great interest. And thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us through 2022, and looking forward to 2023. Really appreciated that, and I think people appreciated the live show tonight. So thank you for that as well. Have a very good New Year's celebration, and we'll pick up the rant on a Monday in the new year as normal. Looking forward to that. And thank you very much, Edwin. And I will just say before we go off air that I will be running a live show tomorrow with Leif Van Onselen, and we're going to talk about the property recession in 2023. That's Leif's view of the world. So join me at the normal time tomorrow evening for a conversation with Leif, and that'll be an interesting conversation. So, Edwin, thank you very much. Have a good evening, and we'll see you later.
Definitely, Martin. Looking forward to 2023.
Yeah,
don't forget, 2023, the year of the hustle.
See you later. Cheers. And just before I go, there you go. The doggy cam is still in splendid working order. Here's Luna completely asleep at the moment. Whoops, I come pulling the wrong way. And there's Meter over there as well, just completely asleep too. So they have completely checked out for the evening. So until I take them for their evening walk. So thank you very much for spending some extra time with us live tonight. Hope you had a good evening. Hope you had a good Christmas. Join us tomorrow night for Leith, and I'll look forward to seeing you then. And if not, wish you the very best for the New Year celebrations, and I'll see you in the new year. This is Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, signing off. Cheerio.